Today, we are diving into a massive question, one that gets at the very heart of being human. How do we make meaning? Unlike any other creature on the planet, we build these incredible, complex worlds of significance through play, art, stories, and ceremonies. But how does that actually work? Let's start right here with what looks like a really simple act. You see this child playing with her doll. What on earth could this game have in common with, say, a sacred religious ceremony or a giant national monument? Well, as we're about to find out, the answer is everything. They're all acts of pure human creativity that give shape and real substance to our world. So where does it all begin? Well, it starts with the most fundamental and maybe the most important form of human creativity there is: play. Sure, lots of mammals play, but we humans, we take it to a whole other level. We keep playing our entire lives. Okay, so what is play, really? At its core, it's built on something anthropologists call openness, which is just our amazing ability to think about and do the exact same thing in a bunch of different ways. Play is like this special frame we choose to step into. It's a space where we all agree, okay, let's pretend. And by doing that, we literally transform the world around us. Now, to get into this play frame, we have to communicate about our communication. You know what I mean? Think about puppies playing. They've got that play face that tells the other dog, hey, this attack isn't for real, and this bite is just going to be a little nip. We humans do the same thing, right? With a wink or a smile or a certain tone of voice, we create a boundary that separates the world of play from the regular rules of life. And make no mistake, this goes way beyond just trivial games. In one really powerful study, anthropologist Elizabeth Chin worked with young, poor African-American girls who mostly had white dolls. And what did they do? In their play, they gave these dolls black hairstyles, braids, beads, you name it. They were actively bringing these dolls into their world, using the creative space of play to challenge and literally reshape the social realities of race that surrounded them. It's incredible. So we've got play, this open-ended creative frame. But what happens when we start to make the rules a little more formal, when we add standards for skill and, beauty? Well, that's when we get what we call art. This definition from anthropologist Alexander Alland is absolutely key. Art is basically a type of play, but it's play with form, a set of rules, a specific style, and it does two amazing things at once. It represents something from the real world, but it also transforms it into a totally new medium, creating a new reality. And this right here is a perfect illustration of that whole idea. You've got this Japanese artist, he's representing the legendary hero Arjuna, but he's also transforming that whole idea into a two-dimensional leather puppet. The colors, the angle of the head, the style, it all comes together to represent the hero's inner state, creating this brand new object that an audience can have a real emotional response to. But, things get pretty complicated in our globalized world. Get this. An anthropologist was performing with a Bolivian music group in France, and a spectator came up to him. She pointed to one of the dancers who had hair extensions and said, "She's fake." Then she pointed to another dancer and declared, "She's real." This just blows up a huge question, right? Who gets to decide what is authentic? I mean, is Japanese hip-hop, performed by Japanese-speaking teens in Tokyo, somehow less authentic than American hip-hop? Or has it just been transformed and localized into something totally new and equally valid? And this really gets to a critical point. A huge amount of what we call art in big Western museums was never actually intended to be art by the people who made it. Think about it. Masks, ancestor figures, reliquaries, these were functional, powerful objects in their own cultures. They were appropriated by Western institutions and given a new exhibition value. They only became art because someone with the power and authority to do so said they were. Okay, let's see how this all builds. We've looked at how individuals and small groups can create meaning through play and art, so now we're going to scale up to the powerful, shared stories and actions that bind entire societies together, myths and rituals. Now, for anthropologists, myths aren't just lies or fairy tales. No, they are powerful narratives that make life meaningful. For a guy like Bronislaw Milanovsky, a myth could be a kind of social charter, explaining why a certain family has the right to rule. But for someone like Claude Lévi-Strauss, myths are more like tools for thinking. They help us wrestle with the huge contradictions of life that we can't solve otherwise, like the ultimate opposition between life and death. So you have these big guiding stories, but how do you make them real in our actual lives? How do you actually transform people? Well, you use rituals. And a super important kind of ritual is the rite of passage, which officially moves a person from one social identity to a completely new one. And here's the wild part. These rituals, almost all of them, follow a universal three-part playbook. First, you're separated from your old life. Second, you enter this weird, ambiguous, in-between zone called a liminal state. And finally, you are reintroduced to society as a whole new person. And you see this exact same structure in completely different worlds. Just look at this. On one hand, you have an Apache girl's traditional coming-of-age ceremony. On the other, a Harvard Law School graduation. One's a sacred ritual, the other a modern secular one. But both are rites of passage, and both use that same three-part structure to mark a profound change in identity. In that in-between liminal state, something pretty amazing can happen. The anthropologist Victor Turner called it communitas. All the normal social hierarchies and structures just fall away, and people develop this intense, unstructured bond of just shared humanity. It's that powerful feeling of oneness you might get at a concert or during a protest or even a team-building retreat. So if you put play and ritual right next to each other, you see they are really two sides of the same coin. Play is based on metaphor. It says, let's make believe. It opens up a universe of possibilities. But ritual is based on literalness. It says, let's believe. It narrows all those possibilities down to reinforce a single, powerful, self-evident truth about the world. Okay, so we've got all these different pieces on the board: play, art, myth, and ritual. So how do they all fit together to create the incredible, meaningful worlds that we all live in? Well, you can think of these as the fundamental building blocks of meaning. They're the toolkit every single human culture uses to construct its own reality. Play is the engine of creativity. Art takes that creativity and gives it rules and form. Myth gives us the stories we live by, and ritual takes those stories and makes them a real, lived, transformative experience. And all together, they build our worldviews, those huge, all-encompassing pictures of reality that feel so completely natural and obvious to us. From a child playing with a doll all the way to a formal legal ceremony, we are constantly, every day, engaged in this deeply human project of building, maintaining, and sometimes even challenging our vision of the world. And that, of course, brings this whole conversation right back to you. I want you to just take a second and think about your own life. From the private rituals of a birthday party to the massive public myths of a national holiday. What are the unquestioned stories and repeated actions that define who you are and give your world its meaning?